So I'm Kirsty Miller from Head of the School of Psychology, and I was academic co-lead on the peer mentoring project at Lincoln. And we have Clare Cotton, who was our professional services co-lead and works for the Lincoln Academy of Learning and Teaching. So we headed up a working group of academics and professional services at Lincoln with the remit of examining peer mentoring and developing a strategy for Lincoln. So today we're hoping to provide you with a very brief overview of some of the outcomes of our project and what they suggest about the importance of peer mentoring as part of our blended provision for next year. So peer mentoring has been shown to have a range of potential social and academic benefits for students in higher education. But despite it becoming more widespread, actually the scope of the mentoring schemes in HE shows a lot of variation. So we wanted to have a look at actually what was going on at Lincoln first and then where we could take it. So really important to us was to make sure that we were looking at evidence-based practice. So the key aims of our project were to evaluate the specific impact of mentoring schemes on the student experience, to understand good practice with regard to it, and also to provide a mentoring framework and resources to assist implementation for people who wanted to set up new mentoring schemes. So year one of our project examined the existing mentoring schemes that we already had at Lincoln. We were trying to build an evidence base, what worked, why did it work, what was the impact? And then in year two, really Clare, supported the development of new schemes to look at actually what was going on. So what you should be able to see are the themes of support. So in the first part of the project, in semester A, what we did is we held some focus groups. And we were interested in looking at what students were identifying as actually the challenges of coming into higher education. And so we then did a thematic analysis, and as you can see, we pulled out academic, social and independent living themes for that. So unsurprisingly, seeing as the point we asked them, all of these themes were really related to transition. And our project is really focused more heavily on transition mentoring. There are academic mentoring schemes and professional mentoring schemes in the university as well, but we've focused a lot more on transition instead. Now, there's a lot of evidence that in usual face-to-face provision, peer mentors provide a buffer against the negative effects of transition. They give additional support in a new environment. Students with peer mentors show a greater social integration than those without. And there's actually some really interesting evidence that suggests students with peer mentors show a moderation of the decrease in self-esteem that's frequently seen in new first year students even. Also literature suggesting higher academic achievement through peer mentoring, possibly due to the increased sense of belonging and engagement. Now, the challenge that we're all facing for next year is with the move to blended learning, the academic and social areas of challenge that the students are identifying, they're not going to go away, but our first year students are going to have fewer opportunities to engage with each other and fewer opportunities to engage with academics. So some of these issues that the students raise may actually be exacerbated. So there are wider concerns within the higher education community generally about developing community and that sense of belonging. And it's definitely one of the biggest concerns that I have within psychology. We know that developing community within a completely online program is difficult. And we have synchronous elements that are going to remain in our delivery. We have retained face-to-face teaching. So we should offset some of those online issues. But we're looking at probably, instead of 10 to 12 hours of face-to-face contact in a week, we're looking at 3 or 4. How will the front row of a lecture theatre identify each other when they're never in a lecture theatre? So for peer mentoring to retain its effectiveness, we might need to look at adapting our schemes. For example, increasing the frequency or the length of the peer mentoring that we provide. Lincoln Island, as Chris has just shown us, could help mentees with a campus tour, but what other sorts of adaptations are we going to have to make? So we can consider how best to integrate peer mentoring within the blended learning approach. We've been looking at the evaluation that we have from the 2 years we've been doing this project.
So the research showed that students did have a benefit to peer mentoring, which is good since we've been working on this for a while. So the themes were analysed, and these were the main themes that came out. So really that it helped them with making friends, socialising, the support from each other, giving advice, orientation, as Kirsty was just saying, possibly using Lincoln Island or other such things would really help with that this year, and also building their confidence. So we've also prepared a few quotes here, so it's best for the students to really tell you themselves. So this is from a history student. So they let us know that really introducing the mentoring scheme to them helped them to actually get to know the community. Second quote. So they really saw the benefits of having a student help them. So they did see that obviously the staff could help them, but having somebody with lived experience there to support them was also really beneficial. And that they could just ask quick questions. So before it became a problem, they could just go to their mentor and ask a question, which really helped them to transition from A-levels. They also fed back to us that the knowledge provided by the students with lived experience was incredibly useful. So they knew about things like how to write essays from a student perspective, and that they found very valuable. They also found that the transition as well, so it helped them to welcome them into the community and this sense of one community, so that they got to know each other. And they made friends as well, which made it less scary.
So community, shared experience, a source of knowledge, and even that enforced contact that last quote talked about. How do we take these benefits of peer mentoring and retain them within a blended approach? We don't have all the answers for this yet. We're hoping you might have some of them, but knowing the questions and the priorities for the mentees will hopefully help us to find the answers to these and also provide advice to new schemes that want to set up for next academic year. So our research showed that mentoring also had hidden benefits for the peer mentors themselves. In addition to the professional development skills, the process of being a mentor actually helped them to self-actualize. They didn't realize how much knowledge they actually had until they started to pass it on. Mentors also commented that this was when they reflected on how much Lincoln felt like home and how they felt a sense of belonging to the school and to the wider university. So there's been a focus on the first year experience for blended learning, but this deepened belonging for the mentors too might be increasingly important to us next academic year. We've also found that mentoring is an entry-level student engagement opportunity, resulting in increased confidence and self-efficacy as the mentors realise what they can do. So we know that in psychology, a lot of our peer mentors then go on to engage in other opportunities, so curriculum design, recruitment opportunities and other things. It seems to increase their confidence and make them feel that they actually can make more of a difference and they can get engaged and involved.
So again, when asked about their student mentoring experience, the mentors fed back some following. Again, we thought it'd be great for you to see their comments rather than just hearing it from us. So they enjoyed helping others. There was that altruistic part of it and actually imparting their own experience. There was increasing their confidence. So reflected again in Kirsty's comment there about how they go on to increased engagement after getting involved in this particular opportunity. They then go on to do more afterwards as their confidence increases. And also it helped them to feel part of the community as well. So not only is it helping the new students to feel part of a new community, the students in higher levels also appreciate being part of that a wider community where they can actually interact with people throughout all of the years and really get to know each other as a cohort of the community itself. So we understand that one size doesn't fit all. It's one of the biggest things we found when we've been talking to people throughout the institution. Everybody has their own ways of doing things, students have their own cultures, and schools and programmes do as well. And that's something that we're keen to keep because there's so many good things going on. We don't want to be prescriptive with our framework and say this is how peer mentoring should look. So what we've tried to do is really harness the good practice and pick out the key elements which really help to make a successful peer mentoring scheme. So with this in mind, we've sort of come up with a framework and a cycle as to how it can be implemented within schools. So the first part is to design the scheme. So we recommend that you work with your students on this, and you consult with them, particularly when setting your aims, your objectives, so you know exactly what it is that you're trying to achieve. Moving on to that, you then need to recruit the mentors. So the key person within all of this is the scheme coordinator. So somebody who's actually going to be overlooking it and reaching out to the students and really engaging with them. The training, we've had to adapt this for this year, particularly with the online side of things as well. So there's synchronous and asynchronous as well. So they can get across a lot of the key points before the meeting, and then within the meeting, we can just reinforce defining the role, making sure that they know about signposting, the different support that's available around the university, and helping them to develop the skills which they've signed up to really part of this opportunity to develop themselves. The schemes ideally would launch at the beginning of the year, the sooner the better, to really help those students when they start. We're looking at online ways of doing this. So there are many ways, Blackboard, but we're particularly favouring Microsoft Teams. Having spoken to students, this seems a platform they're more familiar with, and the functionality in there is great for online meetings, for creating hub areas where students can post and create comments and upload content for each other. After its launch, though, one of the biggest sort of things that we need to make sure we do is support the mentors. So those schemes where the coordinator has sort of then stepped back and left them to it haven't been as successful as those where they've been supported throughout with check-ins to ensure that they're getting along okay, identifying any training. And some schools as well who've been running these for a number of years are also looking to implement senior mentors as well, who actually support each other. So mentoring within the mentoring system too. And of course, evaluation. So this really actually runs all the way through, that we need to be capturing the good practice, what's working, what isn't, and share that amongst the university so that we can all develop together. And we recommend that you have surveys for students to make sure that we have their feedback into that, and also create a working group with your students to help develop the schemes for future years. So bearing this in mind, we've created a pick and mix, a suite of resources, so to speak, so that you can actually come to us to get templates, to share the practice which is working in other schools. So we've created workshop templates, handbooks, and as I say, this is framework which will help sort of guide you through the process, and also we can support with evaluation. We've had to adapt this all for online as well for this year to ensure that the schemes can still go ahead with social distancing in mind. So I'd be really happy to discuss with anybody who's wanting to implement, so that we can hear your ideas, what practice you have as well, and we can share everything that's going on across the institution.
The problem with this online approach is that I can't see who else was amused by Claire's suite of resources whilst looking at pick and mix, because it tickled me a lot. She didn't do that when we practiced earlier. So one of the things that we wanted to do this year was to hold a peer mentoring action day. We wanted to bring together our mentors and mentees from the existing schemes across the university to share their experience and to work together to design potential changes for their scheme. Students only have their own lived experience, you know, what they've had whilst they were in first year, how they've been mentors. So it's difficult for them to know what else could work. And we were hoping that working with peers could give us new insights. Now, this is something that we're going to try and put in our plan for next year instead. We also plan to set up a community for mentoring leads as well, to allow sharing of practice and problems and how we've overcome them. As Claire mentioned, evaluation is a key part of our approach. There are further questions that we hope to be able to answer. For instance, the reasons why students volunteer to be a peer mentor are quite interesting, and some of them, and they differ quite widely, whether they're intrinsic or extrinsic motivations. We'd like to see if this differs across programmes as well, and because all of understanding the motivations for students becoming involved can help schools to pitch their mentoring opportunity to their students and to improve and increase recruitment. So thank you very much for listening. If you have any questions or actually any suggestions, then we would love to hear them. I will attempt to stop sharing now.
Brilliant, thank you for that, Kirsty. There's a question in the chat.
Oh, I can't see the chat at the minute. There, now I can. Do you think it might work for I'm glad you had a smirk, Graham. Thank you, made me feel better. What's TNE? I feel I should know, but I don't.
Hey, hi, here's Sabina. I just come in. We teaching the same program in China as we do in the University of Lincoln, and the Chinese students will come over in year 3 of their studies. And I would like to connect the both cohorts beforehand, because before the Chinese come actually over. And I was wondering if peer mentoring might work as well, even though they're in a different country, they're not in Lincoln.
Yeah, I think that could work really well. And you would have the choice of different options. Transnational education. You'd have the choice of different options because we've seen peer mentoring work when it is a higher year, which is the most common transitional peer mentoring with second and third years mentoring first years. but also you can do peer-to-peer mentoring within the same year as well.
I think there's a question from Sam. Are
Your
your peer mentors subject specific?
All of the ones that we've seen at the moment are within a school, so yes, they're subject specific. I've looked at other schemes in other institutions where actually they are wider and they go across the university in a very different way, often tend to be centrally organised as well.